So maybe tell us something about you. Who are you? Where do you come from? And why are you advocating the startup or corporates?
Thank you, Vlado. So hi everyone, my name's Andrej. I'm in Kiwi.com for 3.5 years now. I'm from Slovakia, and why I advocate for a startup rather than corporate is because I love it. And I love punk, and it's great. And when we were between 50 and 300 people, it was the best time of my life, work-wise or otherwise.
This is the corporate mic. So, good evening. My name is Jiří. I came from Prague by a train with the senior pass already, senior pass discount. I came to Stalingrad, as David says, and when I appeared on the train station and seen the refreshment Stalingrad, I was immediately thinking about who will be the bad guy in this battle, who will play the Nazis. And actually, I think there should be no bad guy. We should just look at the business from two different perspectives. But if we will find any crossing, any pinpoint which needs to be more discussed, I will be very glad. My background, sorry, I forgot to say, I'm almost real corporate guy. I spent like 25 years in corporations. I was managing Microsoft and Cisco systems in the Czech Republic and Slovakia, as well as I've been vice chairman of Czech Airlines. So that's my background. Today, I'm helping other companies to be more innovative. So even with a corporate background, innovation can still be at place. So thank you very much and good evening.
Right. My name is David and I'm with kiwi.com. And unlike Andrej, I took a different path. I started with some of the largest corporations, and with every change I made it to smaller and smaller companies. And I have to already agree on one point. I'm already having time of my life being in the smallest company I've ever worked for and enjoying kiwi.com. But I am here to share some of my experiences working for big guys, working for the small guys, working for some innovative company, working for some really major companies. So really looking forward to our discussion today.
As you can see, you can ask our guests questions on Slido. As well, you can ask live, and I will throw the cube at you. And maybe I will start with the question. Do you still consider Kiwi.com corporate or startup? It's a question for you guys, Kiwi.com guys, but for Jirka as an outsider.
Or maybe we can start with the audience. Raise your hand if you think that kiwi.com is a corporate. And startup? Okay. That's interesting. Okay, so Andrej, do you want to start with the answer?
I believe half and half. Thank you for supporting my opinion. And from perspective of being free and idea open and still the speed of delivery and everything, it's pretty nice. From the other point of view, we are in a glass building. We have tables, lots of people, and we have to battle the problem of the communication between various teams. And with like 300 to 400 people in engineering, multiple locations, it's pretty hard to stay kind of startup-y and free and everything.
I would. I already experienced both worlds at kiwi.com. Actually, the startup part, we were working with Andrej's team on one of the projects, and after my, I don't know, maybe 15 years of the career, I've never seen faster execution before. So that was pretty amazing, and I was like, wow, this is a pretty cool place. At the same time, definitely can see some lack of the kind of common ground where we are collaborating on some projects when we are trying to come to an agreement, and only sometimes it feels like only because we spend so much time trying to revisit the same topics from different areas that we are basically slowing down moving forward. So it's kind of interesting or a kind of paradox in some way that you can experience both of these things.
Okay, my view as an outsider, I think you have to be both, because in a certain size and stage of development, you cannot be just a startup, but I still feel that you have the culture and the roots of startup. But as I said, it pretty much depends on the stage of development, not only company, but the industry, also on the task which you are just solving. Because imagine just, for example, medtech. Medtech, so medicine, technologically advanced, there is a plenty of startups. But when you enter the emergency room, you don't want to have a bunch of people from the startup solving very urgent situation. So similarly to that, I think already kiwi.com in some functions have been pretty corporate or highly professional or highly focused on the performance, like, for example, customer service. But still, there is plenty of room for you to innovate and bring more ideas. So I don't know if it's half and half, but I see in kiwi.com that you are blending both the functions. And that's probably the answer if anybody of you planned to ask during the Q&A if startup and corporate approach can live together. So answer is yes. I'm sorry that you cannot ask the question anymore.
May I ask you, what do you think is the difference, or where is the line between startup and corporate? And do you think it's quality, for example, for the customer service example?
Well, there is no single borderline. I think, I believe, similarly to economy of scale, has anybody here in the room the economic education? So, do you know the economy of scale principle? So, similarly to economy of scale, I believe that there is some law of economy of startup, but so far I haven't seen that anywhere. So my ambition is to find out the formula for that and then win the Nobel Prize for economics to invent this economy of startup. But so I think there is no single line where you would say like, okay, guys, have a nice weekend, and on Monday we will return back to corporation. So that's not a fact. But I think the biggest differentiator between startup and corporation is that startup focuses much more on innovative power, on the ability to generate more ideas, whereas the corporation focus much more on the performance. And that's, for me, a kind of borderline in the mind of leaders where they bring the company.
Just wanted to add my experience from SpaceX, because this was actually a great example of what you try to demonstrate with the medtech. SpaceX is an incredibly innovative company. They are innovating space exploration. They are innovating way how we can reuse the rockets, how we can basically push the humanity beyond our known frontiers. But having there all of this innovation and having there all of these free spirits, I've never seen more disciplined company in terms of security. Like we had a lot of discussions, for example, at kiwi.com about how are we going to apply some of the security measures. My normal day going to SpaceX was that I need to pass somebody with the gun in front of the entrance. I need to swipe my badge. I need to swipe my badge again on the tourniquet. I need to get to my desk, connect to the VPN, and then I can finally start within the SpaceX building. And it's incredibly secure. When we were launching some mission, it was almost like a military type of discipline. Like, if something happens, here is your checklist. Like you could not go off the track or something unless you were Elon Musk or somebody like that. But it was really interesting blend of innovative, creative company with this military-like discipline in some aspects, because it was just required by the law or it was just required for the human safety. So just want to add this part.
You already mentioned it a bit, but is it possible to integrate a startup-y approach into corporates, not only the new cool ones, but the old molochs? Andrej?
From my perspective, yes, because in my definition, startup is it's a temporary organization built to find sustainable and scalable business model. That's pretty much the notebook definition. But in this case, you can have the startup anywhere, and any one of you can make their own startup. Even if you have a huge corporation, it can behave like a startup, such as Apple, who distinguishes between the products, and each is kept as separate vertical. They have common rules. That's the corporate, unfortunately, thing. But otherwise, they can behave on their behalf and take decisions on their behalf without anyone else needed. And by doing this, they can progress much faster. And they eliminate a lot of communication issues which come with a huge startup-y, huge corporate organization or so. Yeah, and
just maybe one example for me how you can actually implement the kind of startup-ish approach back to the huge corporation. For me, the biggest comeback of last 10 or 20 years was actually Microsoft when Steve Ballmer was replaced by Satya, or how they call him in Czech, Satya. And they are making really huge comeback in cloud computing. They are making huge comeback in household devices. They are making huge comebacks in productivity space. Not that I'm a huge user. I just invested my money in Microsoft. It really turned out well. But I've seen it also, the change of mindset of the people that work there. I see more and more of my friends, of my former colleagues from companies like Netflix or Amazon, they're actually joining Microsoft because they see it as a cool company. So I definitely believe it's possible, but it needs the right leadership, set the course for the company, and change the mindset of the people, and sometimes actually get rid of some people that were blockers and that were just building their kingdoms, if you will, or building their protection, not to evolve from there.
My answer is also yes. It can be combined. It can be implemented. In my view, we are very often misinterpreting the discussion about the difference between startups and corporations in a way that we think that there is some big divide between those two worlds. But basically, we are talking about a battle between startups and corporations. More often we talk about the generations, different approach of the generations. So as long as the younger generations are coming into big corporations, they immediately changing their behavior as well. Just to keep you a little bit alive, who in the room is over 50? Okay, I Okay, over 40. Somebody joining me, over 40. Great. Over 30. Okay. Below 30. Great. So, just making some sample out of the room, but really, as I said, I think we are sometimes arguing for some type of business, but in our soul, it's rather trying to promote the style of our generation. I have one example for you. As a part of my job today, I also work with many companies on changing their company culture. And I had an opportunity to work with one of the largest banks in Central Europe, which was for several years voted as the most innovative bank in the Central Europe. But still, they suffered with a very bad company culture in the company. Even though their CEO is a great guy, he became really my personal friend. I knew that he was a good guy. But what was the problem? This guy started in the company, in the bank, 27 years ago as a normal salesman on the bank retail office, and he grew up through the corporation up to the CEO position. And after 5 years being the CEO of this bank, he realized that bank, still very innovative in a product, is not appealing to young people, to new generation. And he was confused because he did the best to nurture the culture which he believed was key to the success of the bank. But what he believed was the key of the success of the bank was his experience, which started 27 years ago. He was totally outdated. He projected his career and his success into the path of the generation, which is almost 3 decades younger than he is, younger than his own kids. So that was exactly, and when we discussed that over and over, it took him a while to realize that it's not offensive to him, to his abilities as a leader, to his good characteristics as a human being, but that basically he got stuck in his career in the moment when he became successful in the bank and he started to grow in the hierarchy. So it's exactly in many times this discussion that the leaders miss the point that there is a new generation coming with different approach, different priorities, different work style. So it's not so much about the business model, startup, either corporation, rather about the people and the new thoughts and new lifestyle. Sorry for being long.
But the new approach doesn't always mean good approach. The change can be too bad. And maybe about the future approach, we can take one of your questions, and it's what would happen if founders of in C-level positions will leave the Kiwi.com, and what would happen? What do you think? Will it change more to corporate?
I actually don't believe so. I think very opposite, because some of the homegrown people are now vice presidents or other positions, and these are perfect replacements for this kind of position, as they know the company, as they grew with it, as they understand the business completely. So, in my opinion, no.
If I can just add to it, I 100% agree. And it's not only about this new leader generation that's really growing at kiwi.com, but what I see there is that everybody is so connected with the customer, so connected with the business, and I believe that these people would actually keep the torch lighting and going. So, yeah, one more thing I would add there is what's really important from the startup, not to become like a corporation in a bad sense, is exactly for this leadership not to lose the touch with the customers, not to lose the touch with the business. Our founder Oliver and many of the people I collaborate on a daily basis, they can really go down to the specific customer problem. They can go down and start troubleshooting issue on the search results. There are like so many people that can get really hands-on, and that's really important. I guess what could have happened in the maybe companies like Microsoft is it grew so big that maybe Bill Gates lost his touch with so many things happening across the company, and that's really important not to let happen. Netflix or SpaceX, both of the leaders, like at Netflix, Reed Hastings, he never had an office. He was basically rotating all the 3 buildings when I was there, and he basically crashed on your desk or couch you had in the office, and he worked with you. The same with Elon Musk. He didn't call his vice president, he didn't call his directors and stuff. He would go directly to you if you were responsible for the project, and he would work with you until it's resolved, and he would call you accountable. And I guess this is really the fundamental for not only for the founders, C-levels or whoever. It's important for everybody in the company to understand, for you to be competent and for you to understand whom to talk to.
Jirka, what do you think? Or maybe, if not Kiwi.com, do you have any real-life examples of the startup company changing the direction after C-level leaves?
Thanks for the question. But I spend my time during discussion of the guys to just think about the leaders in Kiwi, which I know. And I have to say that every single person I've met from Kiwi.com, starting with Oliver, of course, I liked a lot. So I think you have good base for the company for the future. What used to happen quite often, what I see, is that, and I would say, if I'm just trying online to recall all the cases, many times the founders are forced to be surrounded by the high professionals. And these, if I say forced, this pressure typically goes from VC funds, and others. Sometimes it's very good because you should mix the experience and bring a new dimension of the growth of the company. But also many times I've seen that the leader has become isolated with a kind of professional team, just building a kind of great China wall between his ideas and his vision of the company and the general stuff. So as David has mentioned, it's great to bring talent from outside, but the company and especially the leader, there are so much responsibility on the leader of the company. But one of his responsibility is to really prevent to being isolated from the company as such. So help Oliver to be with you. And it's not necessary that Oliver is really jumping on you every 5 minutes from behind the corner, but it's important that the information flow freely in the company, and there is mutual trust and empowerment in the company.
Another question from the audience. Do you have any experience with startups that are behaving as corporates and corporates thinking as startups? Or maybe some corporates that are like wannabe startups, but they can't make it? And maybe it's a question for audience as well. If you have any examples, just shout them. Or Jirka can
I
start.
would rather ask audience if they have any examples, just shout them on us and we can discuss them, because it's a little bit complicated question for me to find out the corporate transvestite or kind of thing. So do you have any example on your mind?
I do. During my tenure at Amazon is truly a huge corporation, but it's a corporation of thousands of startups. They are organizing themselves as a startup, the product teams, they are developing something, eventually they can evolve to something bigger. And it was really impressive and interesting to all observe how, for example, AWS became a thing, or how they keep adding more and more services. I would say at least 30% of the services of AWS are long-term in-house use tools for doing, I don't know, builds, deployments in the cloud, and they just became the product. So they are cultivating this startup culture within the company to explore, as somebody called it, they are exploring every single avenue. Sometimes they will find a dead end, sometimes they will find a box of gold.
Maybe Andrej?
I was thinking about the example of a startup which behaves like a corporate, but I believe that's a bankrupt startup. So it's pretty hard for me.
I just recalled some examples when basically big corporations are using startups as a kind of masquerade or kind of a puppet for their intention to enter the new market. So it used to happen. But more importantly, I recalled one moment in kiwi.com history when I was worried about your startup characteristics, and that was when you signed the contract with Amadeus. I've been by myself for a few years in the airline industry, and I know Amadeus very well. And at that moment, I've seen the huge business potential on this partnership, but at the same time, I was pretty much worried that Amadeus will kill your innovative soul. Fortunately, it did not happen, but these are the moments when the startup could be used as just a kind of scenery for corporation going after that and eating the market.
Andrej, were you afraid as well because you were there?
Not really, because I knew that this was a collaboration project and not any acquisition or part of the stake was taken. No decision making on our side was imposed or so. And it's just pretty much one of our services. And if we behave like startup, we can turn it off or on as we please. In this case, it's much harder, like contracts and stuff. But still, we shouldn't lose the mentality of being open, innovative, and being able to kill off a branch which is not profitable or not perspective for us.
You all guys are experienced leaders. What is the best way to build a successful team in a startup or in a corporate? And is it possible to say that something is easier? Maybe David.
That's a very good question. I would have to say it really depends on it really depends on the people and the company itself. The environment can be really different. The people you are given to build a team from can really vary. Sometimes you can be really lucky and build a really strong and performing team in both environments, and sometimes even you had the best intentions, you had the best people, maybe the culture around it can just kill it. So it's a tough question to answer it in the general way, but there can be some conditions maybe in the startup where you can really handpick people that you want to collaborate with. Than in some other companies. So yeah, it really depends. My point would always be pick the people you really enjoy working with every day, and then you really don't care if you are at the startup or in the corporation.
Andrej, maybe?
I'm thinking about there was one paper from Google, unfortunately, but they have money and research and stuff, which says that it's not important who are the people working on the team. It's not important how you build the team or what you do with the guys. It's important how they work together. And that's actually the main factor for success for anything, for startup, corporate, whatever. And while I was retrospecting or thinking about my time in Kiwi, I found out that this might actually be very true. And I know people even guys here in the audience, there was a question about startups getting grown people or mature people, senior developers, to be able to deliver fast, execute, they know the services technologies and so on. But most of us at the time, for example, before 3 years or so, were students. And without any problems, with just proper thinking, having the same vision together, or having responsibility down from, there was just one step, Oliver and people. But it was very nice to break it down and make everyone responsible for their piece. And that was one of the ways to go. I believe there are many more, and some can be learned also from corporate regarding communication, collaboration, and sharing, I don't know, visions, stuff like that. But otherwise, I think that startup-y way and the culture is more important than anything else, maybe.
I would maybe just add to it, because this is an excellent point. And I experienced one of this team at Netflix. There was a team at Netflix. They were building the metrics or telemetry system for the whole company. And after some time, I get to know them. I learned that this team actually was founded in PayPal. Then these 3 people went together to Yahoo. Then they got one other person to this team. They always worked together. They were not best friends, having a family parties or something, but they worked together in all of these companies. Then they went to Netflix, and then one of these guys was pulled to Apple, and he pulled the rest of the team, so they are still working together at Apple. And it's quite amazing, and just demonstrating that if you really love working with people around you, and you know how to deliver stuff, it's the way to go. Doesn't matter if it's startup or corporate. My only addition to there is that the bigger is the company, it can be the startup, a huge company with 10,000 of people. It's super hard to find enough people, enough teams like this that would form the whole company. So that's why you are putting together somehow artificial team. They just don't click so well together, but you still need them.
Yeah, for the 3 people, I believe they have very nice scheme for hiring bonuses.
I guess.
Just if I can add to both the answers, David has emphasized the importance of hiring the right people, and it's not the right people only in terms of experience and a specialty, but also, let's say, the right behaving people and good fit to the team. Andrej has emphasized the collaboration part. I think the bridge between that are the values, shared values, and that's what we then can call culture. Many times the values are even not specifically articulated. I even don't know if kiwi.com has some official values or not. No, but definitely there are some, and they are shared. And these can be the things like integrity. So we do not change the project in our favor if it would harm the customer, or these kind of the principles which you do every day and in every hour. And if those values have to be shared, if they are shared, then the cooperation is good, and the fit of the experts or juniors who have high learning potential is good for the company. Sometimes people ask me like, well, what if my personal life values are different? For example, my personal number one value is the family. Support my family members, not being extra expert. But it's not between the values of the company. Is it something wrong? It's not wrong until you are in sync with those values. It doesn't mean that you join kiwi.com and you just load the new program into your brain and you change your view of the world. And if you till now have been supporting sustainability of the world, so now you will refocus to totally different area. It's about if your values are in sync with the company and you can refer to that. You still have your own soul, your own life, but it should be in line with the principles which company lives. So even though kiwi.com till now does not have the articulated values, and I will have to talk to Oliver to probably do the project with him to bring them on a paper. I'm just kidding. But still they are lived around in this team. And if you would spend like 15 minutes of silent brainstorming, I strongly believe that you would find like 3 or 5 on which you can agree most here in the room.
Yeah, the values are important, there's no dispute, but if you are building the engineering team, you need experience as well. And as a corporation, would you rather hire like full stack experienced guys or students and let them grow within the company? And
let me now start. I try to be short. Because I would like just to recall some of the typical corporate joke, but I don't remember that pretty well. So that's why I have to be short, because it says that the worst thing which can happen in your team is great expert, but totally idiot. That's the worst combination of knowledge and social empathy. So it's better to have somebody who is not good expert, but socially more valuable. But the worst combination out of those 4 is qualified idiot. And I think that's absolutely truth. Many times, if you would ask me about my 25 years career in a corporations and biggest mistakes, then I would say either I hired this competent idiot or I did not get rid of him or her early enough. So I strongly believe that even in a corporation, you cannot compromise the knowledge for being a good person, fitting into a team and collaborating with others. That's about David because he's more technically oriented.
That I'm the competent idiot or non-competent good person. At Netflix, they had the expression. They had the expression of the brilliant jerk, and there is a tons of papers on that. And it's basically a person that can really deliver a lot, but can also manage to dismantle your whole team. So the team would leave, and the rest of the team feels really, really bad about actually working with such person. But yeah, so that was just the addition to that.
So, what's your experience with idiots in, in the team? Or maybe I'll ask different. Yeah. Are there any like fuck ups when hiring? You don't have to like name guys, but even what would you advise to audience if hiring? How can you know if somebody is, or if he will fit into the chemistry of the team?
For me, the biggest advice is be prepared for the person. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a brilliant idiot or idiotic, whatever, incompetence, something. If you are prepared to get the person a chance, they will not prove themselves, then fire them. If you are prepared only for competent, great people who can communicate and so on, I think you should think about yourself, because there's not many such people, and it's really hard to spot them and find them. And I think the best way to get to this problem is aim, shoot, and try out and give people the chance.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. I've known only one company where they were explicitly focused and they had these value statements and they were talking about their stunning colleagues. It was Netflix, and as they had clearly described or identified these brilliant jerks, they have also described well the stunning colleagues. And benefit of Netflix is they can pay incredible amount of money to take these stunning colleagues from any company they will choose. So it's definitely not for everybody. And what Andrej says, that's definitely a big truth, that you need to be prepared for people. Don't be prepared for unicorns. Be prepared for people, because you can hardly find unicorns anywhere.
When you were sharing the experience, people ask if you have a recipe how to promote people into leadership roles based on their capabilities and not seniority, while organization grows at pace of startup.
Recipe? No. Just try it. Aim, shoot.
Or shoot more.
Yeah, the best thing for people is when they want to get promoted, or you feel that they really want to get this position, okay, let them try it, because they would feel the best at the position they think they chose, and they will feel the best about. So if someone is a maintenance specialist on the 3rd floor, which is the cleaning lady, and she wants to, to go to try customer service or so, if she speaks English and she has some hard skills, why not? And the people should follow their ambition, and they should be able to be the best at the best place they think they want to be. Of course, there are many people who overestimate or think a lot about themselves, but if you are prepared, we are able to solve it. Find a new place, because if you are growing as a startup, you cannot really fire everyone, because you will have no people and you need to grow. So it's still, even from economic point of view, not only from the personal point of view, it's better to find for the person a better place where they will fit better.
Finally, some controversy, because I do not agree in terms of picking people or building the leadership team. I do not agree with the approach of aim, shoot. Actually, there is so much in risk at the moment. So just to promote somebody, I've seen so many people to be burned. Not even that they've been wrongly chosen, but it burned their whole career because somebody said you are the best technician, best engineer in the team. How about to become a manager? Just try. So many times I've seen such a scenario, burning the people, burning the team, and then getting the company back on the right track with a lot of effort. So in terms of picking the right leaders, first, even the cleaning lady, that's fine, because being leader is not a competency you can learn. It's not your expertise in programming in Python or whatever. It's not the competency which is somehow taught. You have to have some basic prerequisitions to become a leader, to have the empathy, to be able to show the people a kind of vision or a bigger picture of what they are doing, being to live really integrity for itself. And first you have to be sure that the person has these abilities and is able to really build on them, work with them, because one of the basic things of the leader is to being cautious, to understand first the person itself, how I am, where in what I'm good in, what I'm bad in, and what are the other peoples around me. I had one coach in the US, and one of his courses was called How to Deal with Difficult People, also known as Anybody Else. Because he used to say, based on Carl Jung's work, that probability that you will find another person with very similar style of thinking like you is like 1.3%. So there is like 98.7% probability that the person around you will have a different style of thinking, different approach to work, and so on. And that's why the leaders have to be very inclusive, empathetic, and you have to test it before throwing those person into the role. And as I said at the beginning, just the expertise, the technical. Now I forget that qualification is definitely not on top of the list for the leader.
I just have one recipe or recommendation. Before promoting anybody within your team, make sure you have a clear expectations. What do you expect from the leader? What do you expect from the leader to be? And observe the person long enough that you can say, okay, this person is already performing there, because you can actually observe this leadership skills, this leadership attitude in the people way before they are kind of formally acknowledge that now you are the leader. They are already performing like that, so that would be my advice.
And Jirka is asking, from your experience, how many people in corporates are more or less useless? It's a bit harsh question, but is it possible, like, to say in big corporates?
Yeah, it's in US. What I experience, it's the uselessness is probably within not a bad connotation. It's not a bad thing, and quite often I experience layoffs, and this is probably something that in Czech you haven't experienced for the last couple of years. Everybody is just hiring. And most recently, SpaceX laid off 10% of their personnel. Tesla let go. I don't know, maybe even more. But it's really helping the company. They are managing to still deliver the projects. They are cutting some dead wood. They are actually giving some choices for the managers. If they are struggling with some employees that they are not sure about, they are giving them the tool set to let them go. So I wouldn't say they are useless, but they are not needed for the company success.
In my own experience of 25 years, it's in European condition is 6 to 7 times P. That was a joke. There is no number.
Would you like to add something from the startup-ish point of view? Is it possible to startup to encounter like useless part, or the startups are so in need of people that they can't lay off any part of them?
Yeah, of course they lay off people. We call it firing. And like you need to do that. And as a startup, you are trying to find the correct product market fit. And it's very same with the people. You need to find the correct fit for the people. Sometimes the culture or the environment or the company direction is so different from your personal core values that it doesn't make sense for you to stay. Yeah.
I would like to add one more thing, and it will be again exercise with all of you here. How many of you here are managers? And anybody of you, do you have a person in your team that if they come to you tomorrow and tell you, hey, I have this amazing job offer from some other company, would you let them go? That's what Netflix calls a manager's test. And this means that you should let the person go right away. You are not needing this person, and there are some reasons why you would let this person go. So that's maybe the answer, real time, if you ever need it.
Sorry, I was not successful with my joke about the precise number, so I try once more. Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks, David, supporting me. But as Andrej has said, we call it firing in kiwi.com. When I was in a Cisco in HR department, we had two guys sitting in the joint office, and we called them hi-fi, like high fidelity, hi-fi, and this acronym hi-fi came from the fact that one was responsible for hiring, and the other one was responsible for firing, and they were sitting in the same office. So I was always threatened that they mix up the papers, one day. Actually, at the end of the day, they've been both fired as the effect of reduction.
This is a bit personal, but maybe how can one find? No problem. How can one find that he peaked in a company and it is time to move to another one? Maybe David can start as yes, experience.
Can I be very incorrect, improper? Your stocks are vested. That's a typical thing at Silicon Valley companies when you get a stock grant and it's vested typically 4 or 5 years, and there is actually a name for it. It's called 4 or 5 years cliff that companies are seeing, the cliff that people are leaving. It's up to you. It's the right answer. I've seen so many people at, for example, SpaceX. They've been there from the beginning. They made millions. They could retire now, and they are still there and working crazy hours, sometimes sleeping in the office. So depends what are your life goals, I would say.
Andrej?
I think it's all about yourself, your values, your vision. If you still think the company is going your direction or not, or if you feel happy every day, if you are able to get up from the bed and go to work and feel okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. There are very bad days, there are extremely bad days, there are even worse days. But still, if you are able to get up the next day and think about it like, yeah, I'm going somewhere, I'm doing something nice, it's cool, I will have there these magnificent people, I will have some fun, I will make something good for the world, like, there's no need to change. If you feel like, yeah, this is a shitty situation, I wish I spent the day on Mallorca and having coconut in my hand with some very nice rum, I think it's time to think about changing.
Yeah, it's quite simple, if you don't feel happy in your work, if you don't find satisfaction in your work, then you should leave it, because basically in your life there is a kind of triangle. Most of us have some partners, family, some relatives, or even if you are alone, if you would be technically orphan, then you have a bunch of friends around you. So that's one one corner of your triangle, then work is another one, and then you personally, you have to obviously satisfy yourself in your needs and in your expectation as well. So it does not make sense if work is not contributing your personal satisfaction. And you may say, it's easy to say, but I need to make money for buying my own apartment. Actually, it's not true, you know. If I would write the curve of my wealth during my career, it would be rather like a cardio diagram, you know. And I'm still happy and living, you know, regardless the fact if you have more or less. The most important thing is if you feel happy inside, if you are not torturing yourself by going to work which you hate, that's not the right thing. Or if your ambition is not fulfilled, put it in the positive way, because you may feel happy in kiwi.com, but you see such a perspective in front of you in, let's say, research and development in another area, and you feel sorry to leave your team because they are good friends, but you should really treat your ambitions and your satisfaction first, and then goes the other two parts of the triangle.
I'm very happy for your questions. However, time is pressing us, but we can now maybe finish with the one last question. And what is your opinion on politics in startup or corporate, and how to avoid it and not let it spoil the startup-ish atmosphere in the company?
Yeah, I hate politics. I think they are killing everything. It's better to be open and honest, and the person on the other hand has to find the balance, not to tell everyone to fuck off. I had some problems with that personally, and but still to be able to honestly communicate the opinion and being able to stand up for yourself, for your team, for your idea. It's extremely important, and the politics is basically a way how to kill the growth, how to kill the efficiency of the group, how to kill the efficiency of economics. It's somebody lobbying for something which might not be good, somebody getting some promotion because of something strange or so. I don't think it's a good and healthy atmosphere everywhere, and it's pretty much, that's one of the uselessest things I hate about corporates.
And what about corporates?
I would answer this one a little bit differently. It really depends what are your intentions. If your intentions are basically get on board the rest of the company for a really great idea that you truly believe in, and you have the best intention with it, that this is the best thing for the company. It's not the best thing for you, but it's the best thing for the company. There might be required some diplomacy, there might be required some discussions, you may form some alliances, you may form some groups that will actually help achieve the goal. If you are using this politics or diplomacy or whatever you call it for your own building the kingdom and stuff like that, it will for sure kill the whole company, and it won't help you either long term.
I will join on the positive part. When I was in Microsoft in some period of time, we have established and developed so-called Société de Richelieu, which was called according to Cardinal Richelieu, and that was exactly this kind of undercover alliance, which was trying to help the good ideas to be promoted and to find the advocates in other parts of the company. So I would say this is a positive politics. If you build the alliance, if you try to build the group of influencers which are promoting the right goal. On the other hand, at the same time, when I was with Microsoft, we always looked at IBM as the kind of great example of being over-politic company. And we used to say that internally, it's and the fact was that internally it was so rigid in the structure and decision making that basically the only way how to achieve anything in IBM was to have your sponsor, supervisor, fight the other group, and that was really insane. I don't know if IBM is still in the same mood. A lot of time has passed since that, but that was the example of negative politics in my mind. And back to Andrej, I'm glad and I'm pleased by your openness. But as you said, you should be respectful at the same time. So you have to keep it in balance. But you mentioned that by yourself, so I believe that you're learning with every single decision and comment. You can try now, comment me.
I hope, is there anyone offended? Great. Yeah, I understand your points, but still I think that the structure of the company shouldn't be that rigid for you to have to use politics. Then it becomes one more thing for your people to have to understand or have skill in to be promoted, which is another a bad thing from my point of view. And if everything was ideal in my perspective, it should be something like idea meritocracy. Like the ideas should battle themselves, and the best idea should be selected on some criteria. And if you have an alliance which is lobbying for one idea, you never know that your idea is the best or it's the correct idea for the whole group. And yeah, I understand at the moment or in the real world it's not possible, but...
Few more comments. Generally agree. Generally agree, because to certain size of the company, politics should not be really important or necessary to promote any idea. Then to the point that, of course, I don't know if my idea is the best, but if I approach a few influencers, few people, the difference is if I get support from somebody because they believe in my idea too, or if I get their support because I'm doing some other benefit to them, which is not related to the thing which I'm promoting, then it's definitely bad politics. Like, well, please support me on joining or merging the other team to my team, and next time I will fight against reducing your staff by 10%. So that's negative, obviously. So, yeah, to certain size of the company, politics should not be necessary. And even after that, you can build up in a company some mechanism trying to promote those good ideas, to have some forum where the ideas can be shared, especially today, in this crowdsourcing era. It's much easier to really identify the things which are resonating with others than in the past.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your questions. And based on what was told, hands up who would join startups? And who joined the corporate guys? Thank you very much. Have a nice evening. Maybe you can grab some more refreshments at the bar, and don't forget.
Can you hear me? That's great, because all the time I was looking at the box and I wanted to try that. And I use that just because here is code.kiwi.com. So I just, as
Yes, I know. As the outsider, I want to wish you all the best at kiwi.com. You are a great company. Really, truly. I could distinguish. If you would not, I would not come to Brno just for this kick. So all the best, and all the best with your careers and with your decisions for the future. And be happy and satisfied. And thank you very much for invitation. Kiwi.com.